Welcome, everybody. This is my first virtual party, and I am so excited to be able to host a get-together for Leigha LaFleur. And Leigha LaFleur is running for Metro 6 Council, and she is somebody I know through politics, frankly. I was an elected official at the state level, or I am, and Leigha was one of the people who was usually at the front of the room doing something important. But when I learned she was in my neighborhood, I made it a point to introduce myself. And Leigha is somebody who I call my interpreter. When they talk parliamentarian stuff and Robert's rules and all that, one of my questions often is, what's going on? And Leigha just had this really great layman's way of helping out somebody who was new to the political environment. And through that, I consider her a mentor, and we have forged a friendship that made me so excited when I found out that Leigha was running for Metro. I didn't even know what the position was. And again, she broke it down for me in plain English, and you'll hear from her today what it means to have a courageous leader in Metro 6. But first, I would like to turn it over to somebody who's been working on Leigha's campaign. Erica Fuller is another community member that I would love for you to hear, and she is going to be introducing Leigha.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful virtual house. Thank you so much, GM Garcia, for hosting. I really appreciate your just support during this candidacy and continued support as we continue to go on. And so I wanted to really quick talk to you guys about Leigha. Leigha, the reason why I got involved with Leigha's campaign is I've known her through the Democratic Party of Oregon. I was Women's Caucus Chair for the Democratic Party of Oregon, and during that time I was also in college, or just leaving college actually, when I met Leigha, who worked as a precinct committee person for Multnomah Dems. And so I got really interested in watching her just grow as a leader, as a community organizer within her community. She's been very much of an outspoken person against racism and just inequality that we have that's going on within Metro's in employee systems, as well as we continue to go through our communities as well, the unequal inequalities that we have that are going through our communities as well, from not being able to have or not being reached out. Like one of the things that I met through the or found out through our virtual phone bank is that they are not really reaching out to those people of color or people that don't speak like us or look like regular white folks, to be honest. And so, and one of the things that I was just really strung out and it really honed in on was Leigha's accomplishment to state the fact that inequality is wrong. And inequality is wrong for everyone, including especially for people of color who have been faced with inequality since our basically an inception into this country. And so I have just been really excited to work with her and build with her as we work to see what we can do for Metro employees when we win and get in there. What we also want to do for the homeless community, who has numerous inequalities that are happening within, especially for people of color as well within the homeless community, and that are not talked about as much when it comes to that as well too. And so the reason why I decided to follow her, work with her and all those things is because I see the goodness of her heart. I also understand what she is wanting to do, and that is bring education to everyone. education about our trash system, education about our homeless community, and education about how we treat our employees. And so I am just so honored to work with her as her campaign manager. And I am so looking forward to seeing what this wonderful house party that we have is going to talk about, and how we plan to get the word out there about fixing those inequalities. And so with that, I will let Leigha take on.
Yes, we finally get to hear from Leigha LaFleur.
Thank you both so much. You're so kind. And I am so grateful for both of your leadership and women's leadership in general. I must say that women lead in a different way than men. And I am so grateful to all of the women, Erica and GM and Lisa Morrison, and all of the women who I know in my life through politics, and just personally, who have stood up and taken on the role of leadership. And leadership through an equity lens is so important to me. When I look at how leadership has been conveyed over time, and even in talking with the incumbent in the Metro District 6 race, he specifically told me that previous to 2016, Metro leadership essentially worked with businesses to make unilateral decisions on how things happened. And I see that as wrong on its face. It's so paternalistic in how it creates solutions. Since 2016, however, Metro has embraced equity as part of its worldview in how it creates policy. And I'm so grateful for that. However, I would also say that if I were on Metro Council in 2016, this wouldn't be a revelation to me, right? This is like how we should just be doing business. We can't go in a paternalistic fashion and say, we know what's best for X, Y, and Z without input from any community. That Metro is working through the lens of equity on purpose currently is very meaningful to me. And that also brings me to something I feel incredibly passionate about, which is vote yes on Metro Measure 26210. This is the homeless services measure. And it was created by a coalition called Here Together. And the Here Together coalition was not just your standard organizations who are specifically affected by people who have issues regarding houselessness. It wasn't just social services and community service organizations. It was also the Portland Business Alliance and other business organizations that got together that said, you know, homelessness and houselessness is affecting our community. It's affecting my business. And that this is an enormous problem. If there was funding for services, it would be used, right? We're at a place right now where the city has cut funding for Cheers. This was an incredible service that lasted for many, many years and is no longer available to people in crisis. So that we are at a place where, yes, Oregon has one of the largest houseless populations in the United States and one of the largest populations of homeless children. I mean, that is abhorrent. We need to get not only social service, but community service and business organizations to all agree that not only is this a moral problem, but this is a community problem. This is our problem, and we need to resolve this. And if there were funding available for services, at the state level or the federal level or the county level or the city level, that those services would be funded there. But clearly, those resources are not available. A 1% tax on people who can afford to pay it and businesses that can afford to pay it show that they invested in their community instead of abdicating responsibility for the people who that they live with. I mean, we talk a lot about what our rights are as citizens, but we really don't talk about what our responsibilities are. And this is our responsibility. We must take care of the people who live in our community. It is our responsibility. It is our job. And through civics, you know, through the electoral system, we can make this happen. You know, why are people struggling? Well, it's because certain people wrote certain things that made it harder for certain people. Well, how do you make it better? You unwrite those things, or you write different things, right? Well, who does that? People who get elected to office. So, you know, this is how we solve the problems that we're faced with. You know, it's not insurmountable. We just have to change the way we think, and we have to change what the rules are. So I am here to change the rules, to make things fundamentally better for people who have been struggling for a long time. And a lot of people have been struggling for a long time. One of the things that is a problem that doesn't necessarily need to be is plastics waste. And this is really what brings me to run for office. While I feel passionately about Measure 26210, vote for that. Yes, absolutely. My longer term passion is for our environment and for how we manage our waste. The very first time I had an insight about garbage was in an 8th grade science class. And it's when I learned that the earth is a closed system. And in a closed system, there is no such place as a way. We're all in this together, us and our garbage. And when you think about how trash is managed, right? Since the beginning of time, people have come up with 2 ways to manage our trash: bury it or burn it, right? That's pretty much the only way that we do this. However, that's not necessarily effective as a long-term strategy, particularly when you consider plastics waste. And when you think about recycling, right? When you think about glass recycling, glass is pretty much all made up of the same components. Aluminum recycling, aluminum is a single element. Of course, it's only made up of a single component. Paper recycling, paper is predominantly made up the same components. It's recycling, all of the recycling of these products is easy on a scale because these products are all fundamentally made of the same thing. When you think about plastics recycling, however, when you think about the bottom of a plastics container, you can imagine the little 3 chasing arrows, and there's a number in the center. The number is a number between 1 and 7. Each is a different type of plastic. 1 is different than 2, is different than 3. However, 7 is everything that's not 1 through 6. So it's a very catch-all category. And when you think about how you would recycle these things, it's so much more complex than the way that you would recycle plastic or aluminum or glass, or I'm sorry, aluminum, paper, or glass. And truly, there's only a market to recycle plastics of type number 1 and 2. So everything else goes in the landfill. 30% of plastics are recycled. 70% of plastics end up in landfills. So when you think about how plastics recycling is compared to glass, paper, or aluminum recycling, you can't even compare them. They're functionally different. And what we need to do is we need to change our mind about how we manage our trash. And currently, Metro has a facility that does a process called pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is a carbon neutral system of transforming carbon-based waste into fuel and a biochar. So instead of combusting the carbon within carbon-based waste, it converts it into, or it condenses it into carbon. So this makes the process of converting carbon-based waste carbon neutral. Part of the problem of putting our waste into landfills is that when our waste biodegrades over time, it releases methane, which is an incredibly destructive chemical that goes into our environment and creates greenhouse gases. So as much as we can avoid to put into the landfill and to convert into energy in different ways, we're not only moderating the amount of waste that we're creating, we're also reducing the amount of methane that we're putting into the environment. Additionally, when we use pyrolysis to convert carbon-based waste, which includes plastics, into a liquid biofuel, what we're doing is we're creating a revenue stream. This fuel can be used by Metro either to offset other fuel that they would purchase, or as a revenue stream, as something, a product that they can sell to create revenue for Metro. And as I have seen through Metro's budget, most of their income comes through the waste stream. So while I agree that we need to reduce the amount of plastics, single-use plastics particularly, that people are consuming, I also very, very strongly believe that what we need to do is to convert our plastic waste from something that's just going to go into a landfill, as 70% of our plastics will, into a revenue stream that will create a circumstance where instead of having to use exploitative extraction methods, we will be able to have a municipal source for energy.
Thank you. Do you see why I say every time Leigha LaFleur talks, I learn something? I would like to point out that a number of the questions that our guests have submitted may have been answered in your little talk with us. And so I am going to try to be creative in my rewording, because folks really do have some common questions about this position. And one of them has to do with trash. So I'm gonna tweak that question a little bit. It really started off as one of the things we hear Leigha LaFleur saying quite often is, let's talk trash. And that there are some really innovative ideas, as we all just heard, about how we can do better. And how we can be kinder to our earth with what we are throwing away, recycling, and reusing. The question I think I'd like to tweak a little bit is, what would this look and feel like just to the average citizen from day to day in the short term? Because you have some pretty ambitious ideas that personally, GM Garcia, I believe are feasible and can be done. However, What does that mean to the average citizen in the meantime? How does my life change? Is this going to mean new taxes, etc.? Tell us what that looks like on the short term, just day to day, the average tax-paying citizen, if we really talk trash and change the way we do business.
So if we were going to commit to my vision of the future, we would need to create a plastics pyrolysis facility. That's going to cost a lot of money. However, it's a Green New Deal type of investment. And we've been on the cusp of this so many times in Oregon. Maybe in 2021, we'll be able to pass the Clean Energy Jobs Act, possibly in 2022. You know, if it doesn't happen in 2021, if we aren't able to reform our legislative participation so that all members are required to show up for voting. That's its own thing. It doesn't have to do with Metro. However, it does have to do with the funding for this type of process. This is an incredibly ambitious project. However, it is the 21st century model of how we must be dealing with our garbage. We have gone through 20 previous centuries of having a very low tech way of dealing with our trash. We have the knowledge to do things in a better way. Partially, we're choosing not to because it's cheaper, one, and two, because the fossil fuel industry is absolutely happy with its extraction method for creating more plastics. This came out in a NPR report about 3 months ago. You know, they know exactly what they're doing. And how harmful. It's better to create a plastics pyrolysis facility in the Portland metro area or to frack more gas. You know, this is not a question to me. I think that a plastics pyrolysis facility is the only way to go. Fracking anywhere is fundamentally wrong. You know, when I think about extraction in the Gulf of Mexico or in Alaska, you know, both of those areas, or potentially even a fossil fuel pipeline on the Oregon coast, all of those potential opportunities come with incredible cost. And I do not believe that the cost that they come with is anywhere near the benefit that they derive. A plastics pyrolysis facility, however, that is completely different. That, instead of working on an exploitive extraction model, takes resources that we currently have and converts them back into usable resources. To me, it's a no-brainer. So it also has the opportunity through the construction of the facility to create great paying union wage jobs, and through the maintenance of the facility to also have great union wage jobs, jobs that come with healthcare and benefits. You know, these kinds of things are required until we have Medicare for all. We need to be able to provide anyone with a body with the resources to manage their physical corporeal being. I mean, you can't say that anybody who has a job has access to healthcare. Anybody who has a body needs access to healthcare, regardless of your employment situation. So until we have Medicare for all, I very, very, very strongly feel that Metro should be creating as many good union wage jobs that include as many benefits, healthcare, childcare, family care in the larger respect that we can be creating. As far as what an individual would experience when we create this plastics pyrolysis facility, I would say that the biggest difference is probably going to be an extra bin. this bin will just be for plastics because that's the only thing that's going to go in there. And it's not going to be like, oh, well, only containers over 3 ounces, or just the container, but not the lid. It's going to be plastic, all plastic. Plastic will go in this bin. It's going to simplify things so tremendously. And also create this resource that we're currently, wasting. So to me, I don't see anything but upsides.
Wow. But how do you really feel? Can you hear her passion? And frankly, what I heard is it's going to be easier to recycle. And frankly, the filter that I have, I'm hearing job creation. That's exciting. I have been a bad timekeeper, and so I just want to be faithful to what we said we would do in our time frame. So we only have 2 more questions, and so we will give you about 2 minutes to answer them, and I will try to be better about my controls, and I think the way I can do it is when your time's running out, I'll make my screen bigger, and that'll be like the Academy Awards, the music playing, because these are big questions. This one you just started to touch on, but it's going in a different direction. It's about employment in Metro. There has been a recent, if not historical, pattern of a very high turnover of the employees who work for Metro. And Metro is supposed to be a really great employer in our community. What's happening with the turnover, if you know anything about that, and your thoughts about how we can do a whole lot better at making Metro a really great place to work, where the employee, where employees want to stay and do stay. So this questioner wants to know what you know about it and any possible solutions if you have them.
Sure. So I love the idea of Metro. I love what it does. I love that it has parks and that it manages regional solid waste and all of the functions that Metro does. To me, it makes me sad when I hear that so many employees of Metro do not feel the love of Metro. As I understand it, while employee satisfaction surveys are done, nothing really happens after that. And while patterns of dissatisfaction are known, there really hasn't been a lot of action taken to remedy this. And that is heartbreaking to me. When I think of top-down organizations and how they are structured and run, these are not the types of environments that allow women and people of color to flourish. These are the types of environments that are harmful to women and people of color and make them quit. I want to see that changed. I appreciate that employee surveys are done. However, I think that it's very important that the information then gets reviewed and turned into a report. And if 18 people say, hey, this boss is a jerk, that someone goes to that boss and says, hey, your employees are deeply dissatisfied. And because Metro supports employees, we either want to help you change so that you can be in alignment with Metro, or we would like to help you find other employment because clearly this isn't working for the people who work for you. So, that is an extremely high priority for me. Also, when I consider the types of work that Metro has outsourced, when I think about public-private partnerships, a lot of times public-private partnerships benefit private at the expense of public. If Metro employees or Metro employed employees and concession employees at the convention center and then outsource those jobs to Aramark, they are getting a cost savings on that outsourcing. However, the people who are employed are also experiencing a reduction of services and benefits that came from being employed by Metro. So I strongly disagree with the outsourcing. When it comes time for Metro to reopen the zoo and the convention center, I would very, very, very strongly support Metro making these jobs Metro jobs again. I don't see how public-private partnerships benefit the public in this way, besides in a reduction of cost, which fundamentally harms private people who are both the recipient of services and the employees of Metro.
I had no idea that Metro outsourced jobs. And so, again, I keep learning. Thank you, Leigha. A very last question has to do with the houseless, and you did touch upon this. Especially during this time of the COVID crisis, what are your thoughts about houselessness for our most vulnerable, specifically issues that we had even before the pandemic, the connection between mental illness and treatment for substance abuse as it relates to the issue of houselessness?
Oh, goodness. Oregon has one of the worst houselessness problems in the United States, particularly as it relates to houselessness among children. And both of these facts I find, they break my heart. Why do we have these types of problems? Well, it seems as though when I look at income charts, there is a particular part of our society who is not participating in the way that they should. So the only thing that we can do to create more equity is to create a system that funnels income back into the state, that will allow the state then to distribute resources in a way that is equitable and fair to the people who are experiencing the most difficulty in society. There's a lot of people who haven't experienced the pain point and frankly just don't care. I strongly disagree with that mindset. As I said before, we're all in this together. As I related earlier, it was us and our trash. But, it's all of us. It's all people living on this planet, experiencing the reality that we're currently living through. And does it have to be as hard as it is? No. No is the answer. Why is it as hard as it is? Well, because we make it that way. Well, how do we change that? We become the people who make the rules, who make it easier for other people to exist. Why do we do this? Because it's the right thing to do. That's why we make these choices. So, when I think about what motivates me to run for office, my internal why is the mitigation of suffering of all life forms and ecosystems. That is why I am here. I am here to make suffering less. Why do so many people have to suffer so much? They don't. They don't have to. Why does our environment have to suffer so much? It doesn't have to. It does because we make it that way. But when we choose people to make it differently, we have that as an option. So I want to be part of the change. That's why I'm here.
Do you see why I choose Leigha LaFleur not only as my mentor, but my counselor for Metro 6? I believe we have one more house party coming up, and we're going to work on making it so that folks can show up. I just want to thank our guests for bearing with me as hostess, trying to struggle with bells and whistles, but I think we did it. And we'll continue to connect this way, but please, I want you to remember to vote. And if you don't mind, Leigha, I bet you have the timeline right off the tip of your tongue. There's a certain date where that ballot needs to be in the mail or you're dropping it off. So if you'll just take a moment to I guess give us a little closure. I want to thank you all for participating, and I believe if we can get that done, we may be able to post this on YouTube, and you can find it on Leah's website, and also a lot more information from her. She's got the cutest little cartoon that's like 1 minute and 6 seconds or something that really tells you who she is. So please, if you haven't already, go to her website and tell others. It's www.lafleurfororegon.com. That's with the number 4. So LAFLEUR, the number 4, Oregon.com. Do visit it and learn more about Leigha, and then I'll give her a chance to remind us to vote and get our ballots in the mailbox or in a drop box in a timely way, and I will sign off, and thank you all again for joining us. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jan. Yes, so if you would like to mail your ballot, it does not cost a postage stamp. Just put it in the mail on or before May 14th. If you are unable to put your ballot in the mail on or before May 14th, you can drop it off in the book deposit of any library in your area. Also, the regular deposit, ballot deposit areas are available. So the one at the county elections office and others in your neighborhood. So I just thought it was a very brilliant stroke for libraries to be receiving ballots through the book deposit. So I also super duper love that Oregon was able to make vote by mail free this year. So yeah, if you have filled out your ballot and you can put it into the mailbox on or before May 14th, it doesn't require a postage stamp. If you're able to put it in later, or if you're able to vote later, please take it to your library and put it in the book deposit, where it will be counted until May 19th, which is the final day.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you, Erica Fuller and Leigha LaFleur. Please remember to vote on time and vote for Leigha. Thanks again.